Are they cleaning agents or are they disinfectants?
Disinfectants.
Oh, okay, different. Remember,
Disinfecting
so
agents.
be careful when you say it's a cleaning agent, because
Yes.
I'll take points off.
Now I'm never gonna forget.
Okay, very good. Now, what does it mean?
So the concentration of the actual agents and then the time that it needs in
Okay,
order.
good. I love the fact that you can tell me what the chart is purporting, but what does it mean? Oh, Jin is raising her hand. Jin.
I would just look at it in a way of like, well, we need a certain time to make sure that something
Oh.
is really.
And what is that time that is necessary in order for a chemical to render an infectious agent dead or inactive called?
Depends on,
Hmm?
it depends on the.
Nope, it has one name.
Is it control?
Huh?
It doesn't have to do with like,
Doesn't have to do with what?
I was thinking of control, but
It does have to do with control. We do it every day in the lab. Do you remember third day of lab, Anayeli, I said in microbiology, we do not clean to wipe, we spray to cover. Why did I say that? Clarissa?
Oh,
Well, you're good. If you're gonna look at me, I'm gonna ask you a question.
sorry. We spray the cover to make sure our work area is clean.
Good, I like, not clean,
Oh,
disinfected.
excellent.
What do we call that time, Eric?
Clean time,
Go.
disinfecting time.
Michelle?
I have to think about it.
You, Tram?
I'm not looking at you.
Oh my God.
If you don't see it, it's not real. What's the first? Yeah.
I'm not
Oh,
looking
yes,
at
it's
you, I'm
It's
not
not
looking.
real.
It's called contact time. How did you not know that?
I was,
Huh?
that is.
There's two
the
words.
word. I'm bolding this one.
Okay, so if you look at this, this is what it's really telling you. Because is it comparing apples to apples, Eric? This chart, is it comparing apples to apples?
No.
No, the concentrations are all over the place. Are you with me?
Yeah.
But if we look at, say, chlorine, and what group does chlorine belong to, Amy?
Right, I wasn't even looking.
You are now.
Which, what?
Chlorine, what group does it belong to?
Like, oh, your halogen.
Halogens, very good. Halogens are very good, so check it out. For TB, 50 ppm. So 50 ppm is about 50 drops in a liter of water. That's not very much, is it? But look, it kills tuberculosis in 50 seconds. Right? And then if we go to 0.1 ppm, 1/10 of a drop in 1 liter of water, it will still kill the cyst of a protozoa in 150 minutes. But we're never gonna use ppm. We're gonna always use 10% bleach. Yeah? So that means it's even more concentrated. Yep.
You said a ppm was equivalent to a drop of water in a gallon of bleach?
I know, in a liter.
A
So
liter, okay,
liters-
like a drop into
Yeah,
a liter.
right.
Okay.
Yep,
Our drinking water has bleach in
it does. Why?
it to kill the protozoa.
To kill anything that's in there.
Okay.
It's very
And
effective.
how many ppms are?
I'm not sure what the ppm in there is. We could look it up. I don't know for sure. All right, so let's look at ethyl alcohol. Now, ethyl alcohol represents the alcohol group, and we don't really use ethyl alcohol to put it on our skin, right? To sanitize. We use what?
So,
Not well, alcohol. What alcohol do we use? Isopropanol. Isopropanol, which is rubbing alcohol, right? 70% isopropyl alcohol is the most effective. If you get it lower than that, then it's not very good. And if you get it higher than that, it tends to dehydrate the cell because of the hypertonic environment it causes. But the cells are still alive, so all they need is a little water and they'll come right back.
Is the isopropyl alcohol what we get in the little hand gels that we use on the airplanes and all that?
So the new stuff, the stuff that you get, I think is ethanol. So you guys, if anybody has a hand sanitizer hanging out with you,
Yeah.
look at it. I think it's ethanol. I don't think they put isopropanol on there. But isopropanol is rubbing alcohol. It's the stuff that almost everybody uses to clean the area before they take blood or whatever.
What's the difference between ethanol and like rubbing alcohol?
The structure. So ethanol is the one alcohol that is made that we can drink.
Okay.
All the other types of alcohols, whether it be methanol, isopropanol, butanol, pentanol, there's a bunch of them. They're all very toxic to us.
I thought they were
Ethanol's
the
not.
same thing for
No,
some reason.
I'm glad you're not drinking isopropanol. Okay? Yep,
The alcohol swabs we use for the IVs, is that the isopropyl?
isopropanol.
Oh, yeah,
Okay?
isopropanol.
Now, listen, at 70%, it's the most effective. And what does it say about gram positives up there? How long does it take to kill a gram pos, Sarah?
One second.
10 minutes.
Oh.
See? Staphylococcus aureus gram positive, 10 minutes with alcohol. And gram negs, 2 minutes. Why? Why? Oh.
Because of their peptidoglycan?
What about, no, not the peptidoglycan.
Oh, the LPS. Yeah,
Right?
the top
The
part.
LPS makes them more susceptible to alcohols because alcohols love fat.
What does LPS stand for again?
Lipopolysaccharide.
Lipopolysaccharide.
Jin.
I have a question, but, so what I was thinking was that E. coli, which is a gram negative, is technically more dangerous than a gram
It
positive.
is
So, but why is it easier to destroy with alcohol?
because of its structure.
So, if I wanna attack E. coli, I can easily do that with alcohol.
No, because it takes 2 minutes. How long do you keep hand sanitizer on your hands? How long?
Second.
Yeah. So you ever see those people at HEB, they're wiping down their buggy?
I do that, that's.
Oh my God, why do you wipe down your buggy?
Because it makes me feel better.
Okay, that's typically I think I told you this, I sat out at HEB one time and asked
Yeah.
people a question, why are you wiping down your buggy? Because everybody else does it? I'm like, really? I'm gonna need some coffee, so I walk across the street, buy some Starbucks, come back, and then I ask people, why are you wiping down your buggy? Almost everybody said the same thing, because it makes me feel better or because everybody else was doing it. And one person said, because it's been proven scientifically that 10% of all the buggies have E. coli on it. That's true.
Whoa, really?
Wait, what?
I would say more than that.
Huh, because of like the produce and the food just being contaminated or from people?
Just from
Well, that's scary, cause I just throw my produce and stuff right in there.
It's not scary. Why are you afraid of E. coli?
You don't put your produce in the bag?
Because it lives in your gut.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm thinking E. coli is more dangerous.
I don't know why either. I'm here to tell you, don't be afraid of E. coli.
Okay.
It's everywhere.
Okay.
I know, like Wendy's. Did you hear about that?
Oh,
maybe
that's a different strain.
Oh, it
Okay,
is?
that might
Can we
be-
talk about
thinking
that
about.
strain later?
Mhm.
Yep.
That might be what I'm thinking
Oh,
about.
it's okay, we might as well talk about it now.
No, no, it's okay, we don't have to talk about it.
But you know, if I come up to you and say, hey, I haven't seen you in a long time, how you doing? And I would do this, and then what do you have on your hands now?
Probably E. coli.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that common.
It's very common.
Okay.
It's the most common organism around.
Huh.
And it's derived from the alimentary canal of animals. Not just humans, but all animals. It's everywhere. You cannot get away from it. Okay? Now we compared bleach and we compared alcohol. Let's do hydrogen peroxide, which happens to be my favorite of all disinfectants and antiseptics. Now check it out. For Staphylococcus aureus at 3%, what you can buy at the grocery store, it's gonna kill Staphylococcus aureus in 12.5 seconds. That's a gram-positive organism. Are you with me? Where ethanol, an alcohol, took 10 minutes, right? So why do we use why do we use alcohol stuff? Hold that, just think. Now let's look at Neisseria gonorrhea. The etiology, the causative agent of gonorrhea, 3%. Hydrogen peroxide is going to kill it in 0.3 of a second. That means gonorrhea is there, hydrogen peroxide hits it, and it's dead already. Yes? That's pretty good. It's beautiful. Did I tell you a story about one of my students said, no, one of my students in a prior semester said, well, Provi, if that's the truth, can we just dip our stuff in hydrogen peroxide after sex? I'm like, no!
Oh my god.
Because hydrogen peroxide will destroy everything it comes in contact with. Right? So let's look at bleach, chlorine, right? Here's a cell. When chlorine hits it, it forms a radical, but when it forms a radical, it takes a piece of the cell with it. Boom, boom, you're dead. But bleach, along with all of the halogens, are indiscriminate. They will kill everything they come in contact with because they're strong oxidizers. Yes? Alcohol is not an oxidizer. Alcohol attacks plasma membrane. And that's kind of the theme you're going to see from me for the next 30 minutes, is when we start talking about these families of disinfectants and antiseptics, you're going to see plasma membrane show up a lot, because it's the easiest thing to destroy, and it's the most significant when it comes to life. Because if you can disrupt and break up plasma membrane, you'll kill the cell. Yes, Amy?
So alcohol is the one that attaches to the cell, basically almost the OPS, if you think about it. And then chloride is a strong oxidizer and kills it
Everything it comes in contact with.
because everything comes in contact because
It's an oxidizer.
And then hydrogen peroxide.
Is also an oxidizer. But the killing mechanism, the mechanism of action is different. And the reason I like hydrogen peroxide so much more, Jen, is because it doesn't leave a residue. So this is hydrogen peroxide right here. Now look at that. Look at that, Carla. It doesn't look dangerous. It looks like water with another oxygen on it. Are you with me? But the cool thing about that is when it comes in contact with anything that's alive, it disassociates to water, and water doesn't hurt anything. But the oxygen that's liberated is the kill agent. And so when you put hydrogen peroxide in something, it fizzes like crazy, because the violent reaction of oxygen being liberated from hydrogen peroxide hits, kills. But there's no residue because it's oxygen and it goes away, and it's water, and water doesn't hurt anything. No residue. Okay, Jen. What's up? I thought maybe you were stretching.
No, I lost it anyways.
Okay.
So in a realistic scenario, when will we use the hydrogen peroxide for
Anytime you want to.
But you said it kills anything that it comes in contact
Oh,
with.
that's true.
so we're
Oh,
not
I see, I see.
supposed to put our genitals-
It's used.
Like, you know,
No
You can't
genitals,
clean
please,
anything.
no. And do not gargle with it, you know.
Oh.
So it can be used superficially if you have a scrape or an abrasion. You want to put it on there, it feels like crazy. It'll kill everything it comes in contact with.
So not on mucous membranes, basically.
No, unless it's very dilute. Because a lot of the whitening agents that are out there have hydrogen peroxide at 1% or 1.5%. But it still fizzes like crazy, right? So there are mouthwashes out there. One of my favorites is the HEB whitening, and it's got 1.5% hydrogen peroxide. I'm gonna go see the dentist today, and they're gonna put that stuff in me. I'm like, you're not gonna charge me $30 for HEB whitening, are you? They go, oh no, this is a very special formula. I'm like, nah, I don't want it.
Just give me the HEB.
I'm gonna go HEB. I go, nah, I don't want it. I'm good. I don't need to spend $30 for what I can buy for. I can buy a whole case for $30, right? And they always think, you think about things too much. I'm like, yeah, right. So you can't use it on a deep laceration because it will kill everything. But it's really great to do surfaces. It'll decontaminate surfaces very well. It is more expensive than a lot of things, right? So if Eric, if I came into the room and you're my colleague and you see me helping a patient and I say, hey, Eric, can you help me, man? In the next room, there's a decontaminated area. You'll see it. It's got some paper on it. Will you go ahead and decontaminate it for me? And so you go in there and it's on the floor. What are you going to use to decontaminate it?
You want me to clean paper?
No, whatever's below the paper.
Okay, the surface.
Yeah.
Whatever's available?
Well, okay. Is alcohol is available? You want to use that one?
Well, I'll use whatever's available,
Ouch.
yeah. You don't use hydrogen peroxide because of the surface?
I wouldn't use hydrogen peroxide on the floor.
Oh, okay.
I'd use bleach on the floor.
Oh.
Why?
I'm not going to come in contact with any patient.
Okay.
But didn't you say to alternate?
Oh, I could, but now you're getting to, let's address the problem right now. You're right, I would do that, but let's just say this one time.
It's on the floor?
It's on the floor, bleach.
And my options are what? I've got bleach?
You got bleach.
I'll clean it with
Okay,
bleach.
good. What about the bed?
The bed?
The bed is now contaminated also. How are you gonna clean that one?
bleach.
Not with bleach.
Would use
Hydrogen peroxide. Doesn't leave a residue, and it's effective.
Mhm.
That's what you do for your color.
That's what I did with my phone. Yep.
Should we put hydrogen peroxide in like a spray bottle, or will that mess with the? Oh, they do.
They have a spray bottle that each.
So
Oh.
you can atomize
Like for
it.
cleaning?
You I would not, depending on what I'm doing at home, you gotta be careful with hydrogen peroxide.
Okay, so maybe.
Because
just
it's an
mix by Lysol.
oxidizer.
You could bleach
It will bleach everything, or it will rust stuff. So if you have these beautiful stainless steel appliances at home, if you put hydrogen peroxide on them, you're gonna rust them. They're gonna get rusty. You have to, the point I'm trying to make here
Yeah.
is that you have to consider the scenario. Because every scenario in healthcare is gonna be different. We try to put everything in a little box to do it the same way, so that the process time is, and the operating procedure is the same all the time. But not everything is the same. And you have to think about what's going on, right? I got called to a company, I'm not gonna tell you its name. I got called to a company because some of the employees were having trouble breathing, and they were complaining that their hair was turning white. So the president of the company was a friend of mine. He called me up and said, can you come help us? And I said, yeah. I went in there, and what they thought was gonna take hours for me to figure it out, I figured it out in 10 minutes. I went into their production line, and I smelled acetic acid right away. And I said, what kind of problems are you having here? And one of the employees came up to me and said, hey, you remember me? I was your student like several years. I'm like, I don't remember. But you know. I said, oh yeah. And so they said, well, here's the real problem. Some of my people I work with are complaining about respiratories. They're having problems breathing. And everybody, and he lifted his hood a little bit, and everybody's hair is turning yellow. I said, are you all using spore cleanse? He goes, yeah, all the time. I'm like, okay. That was the answer. That was the problem right there. Spore cleanse is a combination of hydrogen peroxide and peroxyacetic acid. It's a very, very strong acid. It smells like vinegar. And they were using this because they were having problems with endospores. And this stuff will kill endospores. However, it'll kill you too. And they were not taking precautions. So I looked at the manager and I said, I need to talk to you and the president. I talked to them and I said, the problem that you are having is that you're using spore cleanse concentrated and it's hurting people. You need to stop doing that. And they said, well, we cannot stop doing that because the spore formers are contaminating all of our product. It was a sterile fill operation, right? They didn't have the backup of using an autoclave because the materials they were producing were heat sensitive, so they couldn't do that. I said, well, there's a way to get around that. I said, but you're gonna have to have people wear respirators, right? And not stay in the fill bays when you're decontaminating. In other words, what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, have a special crew that comes in and cleans up the area so that everybody's not affected by this. Absolutely.
Gear.
Huh?
They'd have to wear full protective gear, wouldn't they?
And that's what they did, and they solved the problem. No charge. 10 minutes? I'm not gonna charge anybody for 10 minutes. He bought me a cup of coffee, I was happy. But again, I'm trying to get you to understand that you have to understand the problem. You can't just go in there, and a lot of companies will do this because it's cheap. They'll just do what they think is right, and then they'll overdo it, and it'll make it worse. Okay? Questions? Jenny, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go on. So we're gonna talk about all of these different parts of the cell. There's a reason, Tram, we spend so much time talking about the parts of the cells, because all those parts of the cells become targets of things that we can either inhibit or break apart to kill the microorganisms or to stop them from growing, right? And so we're gonna talk about different families. And so when I show you images and we talk about these families, like for instance, we're gonna talk about the phenolics, and usually I'm gonna give you an example. I would expect that you would know the example as a phenolic, okay? So you need to know Lysol is a phenolic, all right? Now phenolics have phenol in them, right? And so this goes into talking about functional groups. How many people can tell me what a functional group is? What's a functional group? Sarah? Groups that function differently, correct?
They give the characteristic to
They
the.
give the 1 point for everybody, because Jen made me happy today.
Yeah, Jen.
How many points did you get?
One.
Okay,
That's our
good.
first
Okay,
one, yeah.
I'm good. I'm behind schedule, that's good. Because, you know, I give too many points as it is, so that's just the way it is. These are the functional groups, right? That's a carboxylic acid, that's a carbonyl, that's called an aldehyde. In the middle, it's called a ketone, that's a phosphate, that's an amino, that's a sulfhydryl, that's a hydroxyl. And this one in parentheses is special to me, but almost nobody cares about it. It's a methyl group. And I like it because some of the disinfectants methylate DNA and amino acids, and when you do that, you stop them from working. But almost everybody doesn't care about the methyl group, except me. That's why I put it in parentheses. So Anayeli and Michelle took me for 1308, and they know functional groups because I taught them, right? And I never really talked about methyl groups. I said, there's another one, but we don't really care about it too much.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
So it's pretty interesting. And so just think about the functional groups when we're talking about these things, okay? So here is a benzene ring, and look what we've added. We've added a hydroxyl to it. It becomes phenol. Now phenol is really effective because it solubilizes in lots of different lipid layers. It can go directly in them. Well, guess what this is gonna do? It's going to disrupt plasma membrane, right? Remember the general theme I told you was that almost 80% of all the disinfectants and antiseptics are gonna attack plasma membrane because it is essential for the cell's life. If you break it apart or disrupt it, you'll kill the cell. Yes? And that's what goes on with this. It does denature proteins, Jim, but it takes a little bit of time. So on the average, phenolics need about 40-second contact time. I am not gonna test you over contact time. I'm not gonna expect you to know the contact time of every single biochemical disinfectant or antiseptic that we talk about. But I do expect you to know the mechanism of action. And if you had to guess a mechanism for the things we're gonna talk about because you didn't know, you should always guess attacks and disrupts plasma membrane. Because just think about it, 80% of the time you're gonna get it right.
Yeah, because that's kind of like the first step, right?
Mhm. Questions? So, besides Lysol, there's a whole bunch of phenolics. Valiant, Vesphine, Triclosan, there's a ton of them. I just need you to know that Lysol is an example of a phenol. Okay? Here are the alcohols. Now the alcohols are really very widely used in nursing and in medicine, but mostly because we want to give the perception, and this is just science, and I'm putting my opinion on the science. Right, that chart I showed you is evidence in a scientific paper when they were actually looking at disinfectants and how effective they were. Right? I have a whole book on disinfectants this big, just talking about disinfectants. But if we think about that for a minute, alcohols are not very effective, and I never used to use them for anything until COVID hit. Because the one thing that alcohols are very effective against are envelope viruses. Now, what is an envelope virus?
COVID.
COVID is, but what is an envelope virus?
It has an envelope.
Well, what does that mean, Michelle?
Like extra protection.
What is the extra protection?
A
No, not protein.
layer.
Phospholipids. Okay.
Oh.
Now, Eric, I'm going to approach you. If you do not want me to hug you, tell me, okay? So I am an envelope virus, yes? I'm COVID. Let's pretend Eric is a lung cell. And I'm in the actual body, and the T4 helpers are looking at me funny. But they're like, I don't really recognize you as being bad, so I'm not going to really hurt you right now. And as Sarah said, if I was in the body already, I have the same type of protein structure and the carbohydrates that basically say, I belong here. So the immune system isn't caught on to me just yet. But because I have this envelope that's composed of phospholipids, I can go in the body for a period of time before the immune system gets smart and destroys me. So I have a little bit of time to set up house and make Eric sick. So there's Eric. Right now he's just a lung cell, and I'm coming in contact with him. And because I am composed of a phospholipid and he's phospholipid also, I can just attach to him, and through the process of endocytosis, I can become merge right on in. And now my envelope, Michelle, has become part of the cell's plasma membrane, but I'm in there with my covering, and my nucleic acid is inside of me, and I let my nucleic acid out, and it goes into his genetic machinery and makes more viruses. And so that cell that I just infected has become a virus-making factor. Yeah. Now, alcohols will disrupt this phospholipid bilayer. It'll break it apart. And because viruses are so small, it doesn't take very long to do that. So if you take this away from me, now I don't have any weaponry. And now the immune system says, oh hell, you don't belong here at all, and I get destroyed. This is why I like vaccines, because it alerts the actual body to the structure of the virus that's in you, and now the virus can't hide. The virus will hide if it's inside the cell or if it's cloaked. And if it has an envelope, it's cloaked. Isn't that interesting? Yes, you're in deep thought. She's like this.
Yeah, because initially, so if we have a virus in our body, we build immunity, correct? But why do we have less immunity as the time goes on, and we're supposed to get boosted? Like per se, the COVID shot, like even though you've had COVID, they still suggest for you to.
For sure, it wakes up your immune system. All it does is, if it's like I've been bored because I haven't seen any action in months. So you know what? We don't need as many. There's cell signals that go on, and the cell signals basically say, hey, all you antibodies, we don't really need you right now. Go dormant. Go do something else, and we'll call you if we need you.
The memory cells.
Memory. And so most of them go dormant. Some of them disappear completely. But there are T4 helpers out there who remember everything. And they are the librarians of your body. And so they go around and they bump into things and they recognize things as being part of you. Like, okay, fine. But then, if you don't want me to touch you, tell me. I don't want to. So if it comes in contact with something, the hell are you? I remember you from 5 months ago. Ah. Holds on, and then it sends out a whole bunch of messages, cytokines. They get released all over the place, and the cytokines say, hey, all of you things that went dormant, I need you now. And the plasma cells get ready, they release beta lymphocytes, the beta lymphocytes say, let's go, and they release a whole bunch of IgG all at once. And IgG comes in and they pulverize the virus. So if you're vaccinated or have had COVID before and you get it another time, your time being ill is gonna be shorter and less severe. Isn't that cool? Yes, she had her hand up first.
Sorry, follow-up question. So, but there's viruses like herpes, for example. We don't have a vaccine, so how does?
Oh, we do have a vaccine against herpes. It's called the, what is it called? Somebody look it up.
The shingles one?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, but what about herpes though?
Oh yeah, herpes is a little bit different, right? Herpes, the actual genetic, we don't really have a really good one because it goes dormant so long. And it hangs out at the base of the neurons. It's just hanging out. You don't know me, but I'm gonna hang out here. And when you get overly excited,
Yeah, the shingles is a chicken pox. That's your one.
yeah, I was.
Yeah, I don't know for herpes vaccine.
No, we don't. There is one, I just don't remember how good it is, so I'm not gonna talk about it.
The T cells, they only have a certain shelf life anyways, right? They're gonna exist only a certain amount of time.
But they continue the memory when they go through mitosis.
They do go through, okay. Oh, really? They pass it on?
They're nucleated, so they undergo mitosis. The only blood cell that's not nucleated are red blood cells,
Okay.
but they get mass produced a different way.
Well, those T cells, they're the ones that display like the antigen on their surface, right?
That's a special type of them.
Oh.
Is that the
That's an
T4 cell?
antigen. That's a T8. It's-
T8.
Oh,
So the
okay.
T8s are the killers, the natural killers. They're also called antigen presenting cells. You've had some experience with immunology already.
Would they present more than one different type of antigen?
Oh, they can.
Okay.
The way that works, may I borrow this for a minute?
Go for it.
So I'm a dendritic cell. I've just killed, it's the same color. I just killed this thing. I'm like, I wonder if the T4 helper knows.
Yeah.
I better tell it. So what it does is, it takes a piece of you and then it sticks
Like
it
a
up there.
souvenir.
Yeah.
And it says, hey, T4 helper, take a look at this.
Yeah.
The T4 helper comes over there and it goes, oh, I have not seen this before. I'm ready. And it sends out messages, here is what we found. If it shows up again,
Yeah.
destroy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it cool? I love immunology so much. I don't know how we got there because we were talking about this and then we were talking about something. But it's all related, right? Because it's all control. While this is control in the external, the immune system is our internal mechanism to keep us healthy. And Tram, when's the last time you got sick?
Last week?
Tram, you always want to mess up my hypothesis. Most people do not get sick very often. The last time I got sick was in the summer, but mostly because some of my major micro students, they gave me COVID. So I got sick then, but I didn't even know I had it because my immune system was so good. It's like, oh, it's here. We'll just take care of it for you. Don't worry about it. I was at home, and my wife came in. Did I tell you this story? My wife came in and said, "You don't look very good." I'm like, "What? I feel great. I'm gonna go play tennis later." She goes, "No, you're not gonna go play tennis." So Mama says, "No, it's no." All right. But I really feel great. Then she came in with the swab. She swabbed me and she said, "Look, you're positive for COVID." I don't even feel bad, but I had it. But the next day, I was like, "I'm gonna go for a walk." She goes, "You got COVID." I'm like, I'm not gonna give it to birds when I see them. I just made sure that I didn't talk to anybody, which is hard for me to do because I talk to everybody. I would say, "Hey, how you doing, Eric?" They come over, I'm like, my wife thinks I have COVID, so I probably should stay my distance, right? Notice I didn't say I have COVID, I said my wife thinks I have COVID, because I still didn't think I had it. I was in denial. Because at that point, I was a 10%er and I wouldn't be a 10%er. 10% of the population never gets COVID no matter what. Statistically. Good? Alcohol's not very good, but good against envelope viruses. I want you to know that. That's gonna be a question on the exam you do, right? Yes, yes?
Can you say it again?
So for the most part, alcohols are not very good antiseptics and disinfectants. But against envelope viruses, they are very effective. And that is a lot of the bad boys, right? That is the ones we have. That's influenza, that is COVID, and that's HIV, hepatitis B, all those guys are all envelope viruses. What makes them so dangerous is that they can be protected from being recognized by the immune system because of their envelope. Yes? Questions? Yep.
Can you repeat what an envelope virus is?
An envelope virus, so let's do it this way. All viruses are made up of a protein covering. So all viruses are made up of a protein covering and a nucleic acid inside. Okay? Envelope viruses have an additional layer to the outside that's composed of phospholipids. And that aids its infectability to the cells that it infects. Okay? Not all viruses are enveloped, but the ones that are enveloped are more dangerous to us. But they're wimpy.
So the envelope are the phospholipids.
Yes, the envelope is what makes them dangerous, but it's what also makes them vulnerable to be destroyed, right? So Mother Nature is creative, but for everything she creates, there's always a vulnerability. And if we can find that vulnerability, we can control the organism. The problem is, sometimes we don't find the vulnerability. We didn't find the vulnerability of COVID until about 6 months into the whole pandemic. Spike protein.
So it's the alcohol that attacks the phospholipids because alcohol is attracted to the, and so then that just works again, so then that's how our body's able to recognize it.
Yep. So do you all know how the spike proteins work?
I learned about it, but I don't recall.
Make a receptor for, make a ACE receptor for me, like this. There is the ACE receptor on the surface of the cell. Here's my spike protein. When I make contact,
If it's perfectly in, right?
when I make contact with that ACE receptor, that cell says, oh, you're my friend, and it opens up. Isn't that cool? That's why the vaccine is made against the spike protein. Isn't that cool? Everything can be explained through science. When it cannot be explained through science, we call it a miracle. Are you with me? Good? Eventually science gets smart enough to explain. Good? Questions? Oh, here they are. My friends, the halogens. They are so good, but they are so dangerous, right? So these are all the enes, number 7 on the periodic table. Chlorine, fluorine, bromine, and iodine. Unless you're from Texas, then it's iodine. Good? They are so good. They will wipe out things indiscriminately in seconds. But the problem is they all leave a residue. All of them. Okay, so you have to use them in ways that they're not going to affect animals or people or whatever when they're used.
So by residue, do you mean like
Like a film,
okay.
like a film. Okay?
And then wash the film off, yeah.
You could, but that takes time. And it's costly.
Is that slimy feeling
So
when you get
it's
bleach
like-
in your hand?
Because bleach is an alkaline, and anything that's alkaline feels slimy.
Slimy.
Soap does too.
Mm.
Good. Questions? So all of the halogens are strong oxidizers. Where the things that we've talked about before attack plasma membrane, the oxidizer attacks everything. No matter what it is, what it comes in contact with, it's gonna attack and destroy. Yeah? And remember, when it hits the cell, the molecules of the halogens hit the cell, they take pieces of the cell with it. So after just a few seconds, that cell is dead. Okay? Now sometimes we can put these in the right proportion. And we can form things like chlorhexidine and other things like this. Chlorhexidine is a synergy. It has a phenolic and it has chlorine in it. But at very dilute amounts, it can be used on some of the mucous membranes, the throat, and the skin. Right?
It's synergy.
Huh?
If you use it long enough.
It is true.
Synergy, but it's removable.
Yeah. So you just have to, and I'm not saying you should use it every day, but I'm saying if your throat's feeling a little bad, you put a little back like that.
We use it for patients who had surgical, procedures done, or, mainly for that. I've heard of people using it who just like have their jaw large shut to like prevent pain.
I have
Because they can't physically.
I have a friend, his name is Rick Fofi, some of you might know him. But Rick Fofi, he's got the Fofi chin and his chin sticks out just a little bit like Kirk Douglas's chin, you know? And every time he goes to the dentist, the oral surgeon says, you know, we can fix your chin for you. He goes, what are you talking about? This is a Fofi chin. This is characteristic of my family. You're not gonna fix that, right? So, you know, what we look at and what we say is maybe a deviation from what we normally see in patients who are healthy might not be a deviation to us personally. Right? So we just have to understand that. Right? So here's hydrogen peroxide. I've already talked about it a little bit. Remember, it's a real strong oxidizer. It kills things very quickly. It is beautiful. And then this is Spore Cleanse, and I told you the story of Spore Cleanse already, right? Very strong. So if you've ever smelt vinegar, think of the smell of vinegar times 20. And that's how strong it would be. So you can see how maybe it was causing people to have respiratory problems and other things, right? It is effective. It will kill endospores. But you can't use it all the time because it will really affect people. And because it's got peroxyacetic acid, strong acetic acid vinegar, and hydrogen peroxide, it's going to rust everything. The other problem that company had is when I was in there, there was a lot of rust on their equipment. And that would never get past an FDA audit. So I told him, so we got to do something because your equipment's beginning to run. He goes, yeah, we're gonna passivate the entire thing in October. I'm like, okay, this is May. That's a long time away. What are you gonna do before that to make sure no rust gets into your product? That's the worst thing that can happen.
Bleach your hair as well.
That's the other problem. They were complaining of respiratory and their hair was turning white. Strong stuff. Good stuff if used correctly. It mostly has applications for water, but people started using it outside of that, off-label, because it's really good against endospores. And then here it is. So remember, I'm going to show you an example. This is a detergent. This is Tide. Tide works beautifully, but so do all other detergents. And where, you know, you had the plasma membrane being broken down, this one's a little sneakier. right? Because detergents are lipophilic anyway, they get right into the membrane. And when they get into the membrane, they start to emulsify the membrane. They start to make it really fluid. And when that happens, Jess, the membrane falls apart and the cells die. Remember, the one thing that makes the cells vulnerable, the one thing that they need more than anything is an intact plasma membrane. Because if they don't have an intact plasma membrane, they will die. They can lose their cell wall. They can lose their flagella. They can lose their capsule, but they cannot lose the plasma membrane because that will kill them. Yes, ma'am?
Sorry, I was gonna ask, isn't like detergent like bad for you, too much detergent, because a lot of people put like so much?
Yeah, people use way too much detergent. You don't need very much. Now, especially now with the concentrated formula, I don't put very much in at all. Yep.
So does that mean that all like the laundry sanitizers that came out after COVID are pointless?
All the what?
The like sanitized laundry sanitizers that came out
Yes.
after COVID are pointless?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good question, Carla. I was thinking about that because I saw it at the grocery store and I was like, I wonder if this. If
Marketing tool.
Yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't seem.
They're preying on the ignorance of the general population. You don't know any better, I'm telling you what's good, buy this, oh, by the way, 30% premium on all the other detergents. He and I just buy Arm & Hammer. He's my brother. My wife, because, you know, she's gonna buy the more expensive stuff. Okay. Heavy metals, oh my God. Heavy metals are outstanding to control microorganisms. What they do is they block the binding sites of proteins, right? So therefore, they shut down whole enzyme systems. So hold up your binding site, Miss Sarah. Make a fist. Make a fist. No, that's a receptor. There's a binding site. There is the binding site of an enzyme. Here's the substrate. It's how interesting that we're talking about this, because this is what we're doing in the lab today. So if it fits perfectly in there, there will be a reaction, an enzymatic reaction, and something's going to happen to this substrate. Now what happens here, what happens here is that heavy metals block the binding sites of the proteins, and now the substrate can't attach. So whole enzyme systems shut down. That means whole metabolic processes shut down. That means if you're a child and you have pica, what's pica?
It's when you have a deficiency and you eat dirt.
Not only dirt, but something else, right?
Soap. I used to do
This could be a lot of things, right? In the days of the playground equipment, when it was painted with lead paint, they would go over and they would chew on the lead paint because it tasted good to them, right? And then they would get all kinds of neurological problems because the heavy metals would block the binding sites of the neurons. Older houses built in the 60s or 50s, if you buy one, those are my favorite kind. I like the ones that are older because they're built better. But if you buy an older house, you'll get this disclaimer in it. We cannot be sure that there is no lead paint in this house. They tell you up front, because if you go in there and decide to sand down your house and all that lead paint goes aerosolized and you breathe it in and you get sick, you can't go back and sue the previous owner or the real estate company because they warned you it's an old house and there might be lead paint in it, right? That's why we have, in the days, you won't even warn you, a long time ago, we used to have leaded gasoline. We added lead to make it more combustible. We don't have leaded gas anymore for that reason. Huh?
Is that why it's called unleaded now?
Unleaded. That's why it's called unleaded. That's why. Yeah.
I had a home health patient one time who would eat dirt.
Oh, yeah.
She had since a kid. She showed me where in her apartment complex with the best dirt.
It's amazing the way they think about stuff.
She had a spoon, she had a plastic container, she'd go in the motor wheelchair, go to that spot, dig out the junk. True story.
They have a whole show like it's called My Strange Addiction. So
I've
they
never
have,
seen
like,
that.
Weird addictions to like rats or something. They love hanging out with rats. They have a million of them. But there are some people that carry certain things in their pockets and snack on them all day, and they're strange things. Like one person had the terracotta pots. She would smash them and put them in a plastic bag and keep them in her pockets and munch on it.
How interesting,
all
because
day.
you know, there's a lot of lead in terracotta also.
Oh, really?
Oh, I didn't know that.
So you know.
So is that
Yeah.
an addiction?
It can be, but it's not really, it's more of, you're missing something from the body and the body is craving it.
Yeah.
Right, so I guess that is an addiction,
You see it all the
right?
time during the famines, and they show the people eating mud pies and mud
Mhm.
cakes. Second to world.
Would it be because of just
Could be, it could be. No, ice is different, ice is different, that's just water. Yeah, it's just water. Cornstarch,
Yeah, I've seen people.
So with,
I've never heard of that, I don't know, I never. Usually it's something like really strange. I don't really consider cornstarch, but I would consider eating detergent strange. And there was people who had a problem with eating detergent. I'm not talking about those TikTokers that put not those, but I'm talking about people who really were eating detergent. And they were getting really, really sick because the caustic nature of the detergent was destroying the back of their throats.
One lady pulled she would take a dryer sheet and pull little pieces off, let it dissolve on her tongue, and another person ate toilet paper plies. She would take one and stick on her tongue and let it absorb and swallow it, and she was addicted to like the sensation of empty.
So yeah, I mean, there can be all kinds of things that people do that you just aren't gonna really.
actually, one of the videos I saw last night, I watch a lot of science videos, but they were going over strange things that people eat, and one of them was, you can say cornstarch, but it was in the form of chalk. And some people it has, for the three people they got around, one of them was that their body was lacking nutrients, but the others, they were all psychological.
Hey guys, listen up, in the post-pandemic era, where mental health was a lot of times not talked about or made people uncomfortable, it has now come to the forefront. And there's a lot of mental illness in our population. And now that people feel a little bit safer about talking about it, they're talking about it. Right? So I think, and you know, I'm not saying that there's a good side to COVID, but I think one of the things that happened was it allowed people who have been marginalized for a long time because they felt afraid to talk about what was going on with them. I think now that they're a little bit more, feels a little safer about talking about things. And that's gonna help them in the long run. May not help them today, but it's gonna help them in the long run. Because hopefully they'll get the assistance they need, whatever that might be. Okay. Any other, yep?
I have a question regarding this. I don't know if it's related, but would this be why there's like aluminum and deodorant?
So, you know, aluminum is in deodorant, well, yes, but aluminum is really in deodorant as a preservative.
I actually did a whole report on that. It doesn't cause breast cancer.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't really do
Or there's not any
much.
there's not any correlation to it. It's meant to like also clog up the, I can't remember the specific sweat gland, but like your sweat glands so that it's not perspirating as much.
Which I guess that's why I thought it was.
No, but there's a whole market that has really come to be born out of the idea that things that contain heavy metals make people sick. And so there's a lot of deodorants out there that don't have heavy metals in them, no aluminum. But there are some, I mean, You will see my late dog, baby, come out when we start talking about infections, because she had necrotizing fasciitis. And my wife and I, we got the vet helped us to get the infection under control, but once that happened, and we did all the treatments ourselves at home, because they were so expensive to treat my dog who had an open lesion the size of, I don't know, the size of his back, right? He had an open lesion that size. And so we couldn't afford the $80 twice a day for them to go in there and do hydrotherapy and things like that. So we did all that. Because she's a scientist, I'm a scientist, we figured we'd figure it out. And we nursed her back to health. And so once she got through necrotizing fasciitis, and once we solved the problem, she healed up very nicely, and she lived another 8 years. A happy dog, right?
I saw that under your slide.
Yeah, and she will come up later on, I'll tell the whole story. But I have the entire process videotape, because I thought what I was gonna do is I was gonna take that videotape and do a paper and present it at a conference. And I just haven't got around to it, but I have all these ideas about what I'm doing as research. I have lots of research going on right now. I just don't have time to do it all, because I teach so much. Yes? Okay, yes?
You said that, having the Black Friday sites closing make the whole something system shut down?
Enzyme systems. Yep. So there's a bunch of them out there, right? There's Nano Silver. I showed you that mouthwash that I have done some work with, right, for a company. It wasn't good. But, there's lots of people who tout those things. Be careful when somebody tells you that because there's nano metal in it, there's nano silver and colloidal gold or something in the product, that it makes it better. That's not really true, it doesn't. The nano silver and the colloidal gold have to come in contact with the cells in order to have any type of a pharmacological effect. And if they're stuck in plastic, they're not gonna be able to do that, okay? So then we get to the really bad boys of the group. Here's Fabuloso. Now Fabuloso belongs to a group called alkylating agents. They're called alkylating agents because they do change the structure of an acid to a base. And so if we think about this, this is the ending of an amino acid or a nucleic acid. It's got a carboxylic acid ending. Alkylating agents will change that ending to a methyl group. They'll methylate it. And when they do that, the DNA systems shut down and the cells die. It's very effective. But these things are highly toxic, because not only can they do that to the microorganisms, but they can do it to you also. So this glutaraldehyde, Fabuloso, belongs to the same family as formaldehyde, right? And so it's really interesting to think how we can utilize these. If we utilize them correctly, we can be healthier and cleaner. But we don't want to use it on everything, right? It's only to be used on surfaces that are never going to come in contact with any of the mucous membranes or anything that food is served on or our skin for a long period of time. If you touch Fabuloso once with your hand, it's probably not going to hurt you. But if you over and over and over clean with Fabuloso and have no protection, you're probably going to be starting to see problems with your skin. Okay, yes?
Could you say that it also contains coup groups?
Coup group, what do you mean by coup? See, yeah, so coup, I've never heard it say that.
Really?
I've never heard it been called that before. Coup is C double bond O bond OH, that's a carboxylic acid. That's this.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
sorry, because I missed that part, so, because I see CHO.
CHO.
So I didn't know.
CHO stands for
Yeah.
carbohydrates. CHO stands for carbohydrates. Yep.
So is the MOA that this alkylating agent methylizes the carboxyl group? Is that what you said?
Of nucleic acids and amino acids. Yes, that's exactly it.
Of nucleic acids
And amino acids. Okay? Good? Very effective. Right? So when was the first time we got Ebola in the United States?
The gentleman flew into Dallas.
Okay, so that's current, right? That was what, 10 years ago or
Where's the
something?
time before that?
Uh,
I didn't know
There
that.
was?
Is it a long time ago?
1990s, Reston, Virginia, we had Ebola. But it was a simian virus. The simian virus was killing all the monkeys. It was a monkey virus only. There was this huge primate facility in Reston, Virginia, and what they were losing all these monkeys, so what they did was they put all the monkeys that had any kind of symptoms in a room all by themselves, and they just watched them die. They couldn't do anything for them. But the other monkeys they put in different rooms depending on when they came in, and so they sequestered them to see if there was anything related, right? All the monkeys died because the air exchange system was the same air exchange system throughout the facility. And that particular virus, that particular strain of Ebola was actually transmitted through the air. Yeah. Ebola that hurts humans does not get transmitted through the air. It is only transmitted through any kind of fluids that come out of our body. Okay? So if Christian had Ebola, am I worried about that?
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Kinda.
not. Not unless he gets up and,
You better tell me.
but if he gets up and comes and charges at me, yeah. But if he's sitting over there, I'm saying, Sam, get up, and we move everybody out of here, but we leave him here. Right, sorry, dude, you're on your own. But as long as he doesn't make direct contact with anybody, you're not gonna get Ebola.
But he just sneezed.
He's what?
He just sneezed. So if any of his droplets got on me, I would get Ebola.
I would keep you there too, your history also, just stay the hell there, okay?
We're
this is
just
the
two
way.
best friends.
Well, I mean, he's not gonna survive, you get a 50-50 chance. Are you with me? So people, it's really interesting to me that people are much more scared of Ebola than influenza. I don't get it. How is influenza transmitted?
Through air.
If I have influenza and I'm up here, Trim, and I'm like, that's him! All those influenza particles are in the air. And they're gonna be picked up by all of these different little notions that are going on with the airflow, and every one of you are gonna be exposed. And some of us are gonna die.
Is the survival rate higher with influenza than it is Ebola though?
Depends.
Might be why.
You come in contact with the patient in Ebola, very low probability of survival. If you're over there and I'm over here, I'm not gonna die. But with influenza, if I'm over here and you have it, Samantha, and you sneeze and I get it, and I'm immunocompromised, or there's something else going on in my body, I have a 50-50 chance of survival with influenza. And the older you get, the more likelihood you have of dying from influenza. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting close. My birthday is Saturday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Not yet, Saturday.
Is the same thing true for infants? Like they're
Yes, but for a different reason. But for a different reason, their immune system isn't fully developed, so they're only relying on the white blood cells of the body to protect them. Where we have a lot of other things that will protect us, right? Antibodies, all kinds of different things.
so my baby doesn't get any antibodies from me?
A few.
Is he born with it?
A few, but not enough to protect them from things that you've never been exposed to. Yeah. Good. Questions? All right. The other bad boy in this group and the alkaline agents is ethylene oxide. Ethylene oxide is a gas. Is a gas, and the gas can go into just about every single crevice. Okay? And so now if you think about that, here is a very strong alkylating agent that gets on there, but it leaves a residue. And so even if we sterilize sutures or staple removers or something that can't take high heat, we can sterilize it using ethylene oxide. But the problem is it leaves a residue, and the residue is mutagenic, it's tetrodomenic, it's carcinogenic. So you cannot use it directly after sterilization. We have to aerate all those articles for at least 8 hours to remove the residue, right? And then they can be used. But still, if we wanna use things on people that cannot take high heat, this is an effective way to sterilize them.
How long do you aerate it?
About 8 hours. Okay? Questions? So we're gonna talk about antibiotics in just a little bit. We're gonna talk about antibiotics in just a little bit, but I wanna go ahead and just preface that by saying that we have come to a point in the entire history of the human where we now have misused and overused antibiotics so much that in some cases we have no way to fight infections. Okay? So with that preface, I'm gonna go ahead and finish the lecture with mechanical, and then we'll come back to antibiotics, because I have a feeling that when we start talking about antibiotics, there's gonna be a lot of questions, and then I won't get done. Okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and finish with looking at the mechanical methodologies that we have to remove, to control microorganisms. Remember, mechanical are not like physical and chemical, where we actually have some force or some chemical that's having an effect on the cell. Here, we're removing the organisms from the environment, and if we remove the organisms from the environment, they cannot cause us any harm. Okay? So one of them, of course, is de-germing, which is just hand washing. Now think about this for a minute. Yes, detergents are a chemical control agent, but we almost never use them that way on a daily basis. When we wash clothes, we do. When we wash dishes, we do. But when we wash our hands, we don't leave that soap on there 10 minutes, right? But the really interesting thing about surfactants and detergents is that they are amphiphatic. Now, what does amphiphatic mean?
They're both
They're both.
lipophilic
Hydrophilic and hydrophilic.
Oh, I like that. Yes, they're both lipophilic and hydrophilic. Another way of saying that is they have a polar and a nonpolar ring. Okay. So in that case, when you put the soap on your body or on your hands, the soap is attracted to everything that's on your hands. And then when you rinse it off, the hydrophilic portion is attracted to water, so it gets pulled away from your body, but it takes everything with it. And if you remove the microorganisms from the environment, the skin, they can't harm you. Yes? You with me?
It doesn't completely remove all like
No,
bacteria and stuff
it's,
like
it's
that.
not a sterilization.
Yeah, yeah.
This is sanitation. Okay?
When you say environment, it's your person environment.
Well, you could also do it, like for instance, you could use soap on the tabletop if you wanted to, and it would work there also. Yeah. Or dishes. Yeah. Okay.
Someone had a video of putting bleach water in their dishes the other day.
Putting bleach water what?
Bleach in their dishes.
Well, that's okay as long as you rinse the dishes off afterwards, but not fabuloso. Okay. So, the other way to remove things from the environment is filtration. Okay? Filtering is a very effective way to remove things. But if you can see, I put a 0.22 micron. That is, right here, 0.022 micron. That is the nominal pore size of the filter so that it sterilizes against bacteria.
Is that pore size?
Pore size. Oh, here it is. That means that on the average, they have to be 0.22 micron or they will not remove the bacteria. You can go to REI and you can buy a 0.45 micron filter, and that'll remove the parasites, but it won't remove the bacteria. Okay? And so maybe, if you think about it, one of the rules of going camping and hiking is if you're gonna drink water from a natural source, it must be moving. Do not drink water if it's stagnant, right? But if you're gonna drink stagnant water, you better have a 0.22 micron filter to remove the bacteria. Or you're gonna get sick.
0.45 will effectively remove the what?
Parasites.
Parasites.
Mhm. And so here's kind of, it's showing, here's the container, and this is the liquid that's not sterile. Here's the nominal pore size. It's holding the bacteria back, and you can see that on this side is your sterile filtrate, your liquid. Yes.
So I've never really done that, I guess. Is there like a residue, like a film, like a biofilm on top of that film?
And you won't be able to see it because they're microscopic. However,
So what do you do then?
what do you mean?
Well, because you have that filter.
I just throw it away.
Is it a one-time use only?
Yes. So if you wanted to, I might be able to set up something like this, and we can, like, if somebody will bring a sponge, we can like put the sponge into like physiological saline, and we can filter the stuff that's in the sponge, and we can hold it back on a filter, and then we can take the filter off and put it on a plate and see what it grows. If you wanna do that, sometime, we might be able to do that. At the end of the semester, when we start talking about control mechanisms in the lab, we'll do that, okay? That'll be kind of a fun thing. And you'll be surprised at how much nastiness is in a sponge. Sponges are
Disgusting.
houses for bacteria. That's what they are.
Maybe that's loofahs, right?
Is that a card?
That's a carboxylic acid. Yes, ma'am?
Loofahs are sponges, right?
Yes, they are houses for bacteria. And I know, I'm not gonna mention any names, but I know some of y'all use loofahs. Yeah.
Loud and proud.
Okay, listen, I had a girlfriend I was in love with in college, we were very young, and she kept telling me, well, I don't know why I'm breaking out all the time. I'm like, yeah, because you're using that loofah. And she said, no, that's not it. I said, yes, it is. So then finally, she read a paper on it. I kind of left it on her table side, so she could read it. And she said, did you know? I had to break up with her. I just couldn't handle it anymore. I just, that was it. She was happy too, because she hated everything science I threw at her. She was an artist, but you know. Here's the other thing. Here, if we are in a TB ward and we say that that room is negatively pressurized, what does that mean, Ellie?
There's more pressure.
Where?
Outside.
Uh-huh. So when I open the door like this, what happens?
It rushes in.
There's a wind tunnel, are you with me? Because the importance of pressurizing or making less pressure in the room is so whatever's inside of this room stays here. And with a tuberculosis ward, we don't want that organism getting out. Are you with me? So the air currents come in and I cough and I have TB. It goes up in the air because that's how it gets transmitted. But the wind current picks it up and takes it up into the ceiling. In the ceiling, there is a HEPA filter. HEPA filters remove 99.7% of all particles. But also up there is the one thing that is kryptonite to TB, UV. And so therefore tuberculosis doesn't survive very long. We kill it. Isn't that how things are set up?
For HEPA filters, does it depend on the amount? So like,
Yes,
I
for
have-
sure.
Was it 12, right?
Uh-huh.
12 to top.
Yeah. So eventually they will be fouled. The filters will become foul, and you have to replace them or you have to change them out.
Yeah. Isn't it like typically around like 4 to 6 months?
It depends on where you are. If you're in a barn, maybe less than that, but if you're in one little tiny bedroom, it might be longer than that. We have them in our bedrooms. We have 2 bedrooms, one for guests, one for us. And we have them in our bedrooms because I'm allergic to cedar. It doesn't make a difference because during cedar season, I sleep on the other end of the house because I can't breathe at all.
Oh, really? You
Yeah.
don't find that it does? I feel, so I have.
Not enough, because remember, I go outside all the time, and when I go outside all the time, the antigens get into my sinuses and they cause a huge amount of inflammation. So I've gotten better because I've been treating myself with my own vaccine that I've made against cedar, and it seems to be working. The first one I made didn't work so good. It was too concentrated and all my lips got all swollen. So don't do these things at home, but I knew what I was doing. I'm like, oh, it's too concentrated. I gotta weaken it a lot more. Yeah.
Like an injectable vaccine?
No, it's sublingual.
Okay.
I don't really have the licensure to go and purchase syringes and needles
So just under the counter?
under the counter. Yeah. I mean, I guess I could if I said I was a diabetic, but nowadays you almost have to prove you're diabetic to get syringes.
You do.
Yeah, because of the fentanyl problems that were happening. Sir?
I was just gonna say, did you go get some cedar pollen and then heavily dilute it and then?
So I got the cedar pollen, I boiled it to remove the allergen, I mixed it in with a little bit of alcohol, and then I add a little bit of water to it, and that's my vaccine. Do not do this at home if you don't know what you're doing.
Still old fashioned way better face.
Well, nowadays, at HEB, you can buy the sublingual therapy without me making it.
Yeah.
So my wife said, "Why are you making this?" I said, "Because it's fun." She goes, "Well, you can buy it at HEB." I'm like, "It's still fun for me." So she bought me one. I still yep.
I just had a question in terms of TB. So, cause technically, well not technically, every hospital has AC ventilation, right?
Mhm.
So is that where they put the filters in?
Yep. In the houses, yes. They don't have to though. Like Sarah and I have standing units.
I mean, I do also have a filter for
I
my
do- we do
AC,
too.
But I have one in my bedroom, one in my living room that catches like the main area of my apartment. And then I also have one that actually, it uses water to filtrate the air and also puts moisture.
That gets
back.
dirty fast. Yeah.
Yeah, I change it every week.
But so the ones I use worked on electrostatic technology. So the filter goes in, but there's a charge there, it holds everything there. And so I only have to change the filters, and then I have to clean off the charging element every once in a while. They work pretty well, but they still aren't gonna remove everything, right? Because the cats come in and, you know, they bring stuff and, you know, it's like, okay? So here is the nominal pore size magnified a lot, right? But here you can see that the 0.22 micron is effective against most bacteria. There are a couple that can squeeze through, but we're not worried about those too much. They're pseudomonads, and so we're not really worried about them too
So
much.
that chart, do we just need to know to?
Yes, for bacteria. Why can't, I mean, if you look at the smallest one, right, 0.01, why don't we ever use 0.01 to remove viruses? It's not cost effective. It would take forever for that liquid to move through that particular nominal pore size. Prions, you just go right through still, like they're smaller. So when I say that we're using a filter, I always say to sterilize against bacteria, because you cannot sterilize against the viruses with prions. It's just not possible. Yep.
With most home AC systems, the only filter I have in my system is like inside the house.
Yeah,
For like
but,
flow from inside.
so there are two filters. There's a pre-filter, and then there's a filter at the actual AC unit.
I don't know the pre-filter. Oh, outside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, so the way our box is for our unit is there's a filter here, and then there's a filter that goes into the actual the HVAC system itself.
Wow.
So I've got a pre-filter, and then I've got a filter. The pre-filter is, I don't know, 1 micron or something like big. But the small one that goes into it is a 0.22 HEPA. Check it. You probably do.
It's like that railing sort of grill thing around the whole thing.
But when you open the grill thing, there should be a filter right there. No?
I don't know. I've never gone out to replace it.
Yeah, I try not to touch my.
No, this is gonna be inside, like, where's your HVAC in your house?
It'll be, the blower heater is above the shower.
Oh, how interesting.
But it was an old apartment they turned into condos, so that's where it is.
Okay, so you might check there, that might be where it is, but you've never changed it then?
No.
Okay.
No, the only filter I change in the house is like
For some of the newer units.
For the venting, yeah.
Yeah, we had a We had a propane heater system, and my wife hated it. She thought we were gonna blow up. So I came home one day and she said, "There's something for you to look at on the table," and I went over there. I saw the price tag. I'm like, "I don't like this." $22,000. I'm like, "I don't like this." She goes, "I really wanna do this. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy," and so I said, "Okay." So we got a whole new unit. We don't, it's all electrical. And so there's no gas anymore in the house.
Is that the, what's it called again?
What?
The one you have now? Is it just electrical?
It's just electrical. Who, somebody famous makes it, I don't know who it is, Train or somebody, yeah. Okay, so I do wanna just mention